Back in the late 1800s, the fourth grade usually marked the end of a working-class child's formal education. High school wasn't always practical, and college was reserved for the privileged few. Then, a unique combination of cheap train fares and a plan by the Methodist Episcopal Church to train Sunday school teachers sparked the beginning of an era, the Chautauqua era. And in 1874, a summer school program for Sunday school teachers was established in Chautauqua, New York. After a very short period of time, it turned into a summer school for the whole family. Tuition was cheap, and anybody who wanted to learn could attend. The curriculum was based on education, recreation, religion, and art. Suddenly, working-class people from all walks of life had an opportunity to learn about things like philosophy, geology, medicine, and elocution. Education for the masses caught on like wildfire, and by the early 1880s, plans for a winter Chautauqua in Florida were in the works, and the realtors in DeFuniak Springs were ready.
The citizens of DeFuniak Springs, what few of them were here, read this in the Florida Times Union out of Jacksonville, and they said this would be a good location, and so they organized a citizen delegation and put them aboard train and sent them to Jacksonville to convince Dr. Gillett and his party to come to DeFuniak Springs.
And when Dr. Gillett saw the perfectly round, spring-fed lake, the grassy banks and the pine trees, and heard promises of a railroad depot, a hotel, and a campground, he was ready to make a deal. And in 1885, DeFuniak Springs hosted the first winter Chautauqua. During the early years, classes and lectures were held in a 4,000-seat tabernacle that was raised in the lake yard. Then, in 1909, the Chautauqua Hall of Brotherhood was built. The winter Chautauqua flourished, and during any given season, as many as 10,000 people, students and lecturers, attended.
And they were speakers from around the United States. They were entertainers. They were physicians. They were ministers. But when you go back and look at these people, they were well known. They were traveling around. One of the most frequent speakers here, appeared every year, was William Jennings Bryan. And no doubt he was a Chautauqua speaker, but no doubt being here boosted his candidacy for the president.
Ironically, by the late 1920s, the key factors that led to the establishment of the Chautauqua, limited access to education, limited access to the latest news events, and mass rail transit, were affected by radical change. Children stayed in school longer, mass communication improved, and people were better able to stay informed on the latest topics. And finally, the mass production of automobiles gave families the freedom to travel to the latest trend in vacationing, the beach. And so the Chautauqua era ended. However, the spirit of that enlightened period is still alive and can be found in the Chautauqua Festival, in the Elder Hostel program,
by Emily Dickinson,
and in Mary Vincent's porcelain painting, lasting images of that great era that shaped DeFuniak Springs.
Snappy chapeau.
The Hall of Brotherhood is one of the two buildings in town listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The other is a quaint little bed and breakfast inn that was once known as the Governor Cat's House.
Sunbright Manor was built in 1886 as a winter home for a family from Brodhead, Wisconsin, J.T. Sherman. He and his family came and stayed here during the winter months for the Chautauqua when it was in assembly. Later on, the house was sold to Sidney Katz, one of Florida's more controversial governors.
A Baptist minister and insurance salesman turned politician, Katz campaigned against what he termed a Catholic conspiracy in government. And he was the first Florida politician to use the automobile and the loudspeaker to reach and talk to voters who had never even seen a political candidate. In office during World War I, he never really had the support of the established political machine, and after leaving office, he was accused of several charges, including counterfeiting, but never convicted.
And so spent a very controversial 4 years. He came back to the house here, died in 1938, was laid out in the parlor here, had one of the largest funerals DeFuniak has ever seen. His wife lived on until the 50s, and after that the house was probably sold 7 or 8 times between us and the Cats.
Faithfully restored and open year-round to visitors, Sunbright Manor even claims to have its own ghost in residence named Sarah.
library in DeFuniak Springs is home sweet home to more than just books. Inside this quaint building, an antique music box recreates the sounds of a gentler era, and an impressive collection of swords and weaponry, some dating as far back as the Crusades, line the walls and shelves, reminding visitors of the darker sides of history as well. The historical significance of the library is not limited to its contents. Established in 1886, the structure itself is the oldest continuously operating library in the state and was in fact founded and funded by a group of very determined women.
Colonel DeFuniak, that the city was named for, was asked to make a donation, and he never replied to the letter. So up until that time, it had been called the DeFuniak Library, so the ladies took his name off, and it's just been the library ever since.
The library is no longer exclusively a woman's project, but DeFuniak's name remains banished from the sign above the door, a reminder that when the women of this town decide to do business, they mean business.
Of course, the women from DeFuniak Springs are strong. They're women, aren't they?
On the lawn in downtown DeFuniak, in front of the stately courthouse, stands a monument commissioned by the local women to honor the sons and husbands who died in battle during the Civil War. It's the first Confederate monument erected in Florida and was, as the story goes, the catalyst for another battle, this time between the sexes.
Ladies got the monument, had it erected on the site of one of their churches. Another group of men actually took exception to the location of the site, and in the stealth of the night, they went and stole the monument and took it back to another church. And of course, the other people stole it back. And the buggies went, and the buggies came, and the buggies went, and the buggies came. Finally, a truce was declared, and the monument was then moved to DeFuniak Springs when DeFuniak was named the county seat. So it almost started another Civil War to erect the first Civil War monument in the state.
And what do you always tell me that I'm going to get snake bit. And you,
You believed it, too.
I know, but you didn't tell me this time because somebody cleaned it up.
No, I just didn't think about it. If I had, I'd have told you. You'd already been in here. Wasn't no use to tell you.
Well, would you sell me this?
I don't know. If I don't have any more, I won't.
But if it's your last one, you won't sell it.
No.
Well, I can't blame you for that.
The ostrich is where the women got the idea of women's liberation. The man does all the work. He builds a nest, he sets on the eggs, he hatches them, and he raises them. The Bible tells you that an ostrich hen has no heart when it comes to her young.
When Schubert Miles decided to give up his contracting business to pursue his hobby full-time, he knew that if he managed it just right, he could make a little money, have all the kinds of birds he wanted, and have a place that he and his wife Daisy could share with others.
Then I have a building here that's got white doves and your pied doves in it. Your pied doves are a speckled dove. Your doves are not really wild. They can be made pets out of mighty easy. And these are golden pheasants. The light-colored one is a yellow golden pheasant. For any beginner, that's the pheasants they recommend for them to raise. The nene, that's your Hawaiian state bird. They can be a very mean bird, especially in breeding season. All your geese, more or less, in breeding season are mean.
Even though customers come in from all over the U.S. to choose from over 100 species of purebred birds, selling birds for a profit is not what this farm is all about.
Well, they're not the same.
Why not?
I want to see if I can raise one. I never have raised one, and I got to have it first.
So pleasure comes before business.
Oh,
right?
yeah, sure. That's what I got them. I got them for me. And then if I raise it, I can sell them. If I don't, I won't.
Wouldn't the colonel like to get his hands on these guys?
That's a black langshan.
What makes them crow like that?
That's the chicken in it. One will crow and then the other will crow. They got to see who outdoes who. Now, these birds like to be wet down just like a hog.
And it's the bird lover in Schubert Miles and the people lover in Daisy that keeps Miles Feather Farm going.
Retire? We're not ever going to retire.
That's something else that's never interested me. People used to say, when you going to retire? When you going to retire? But it never did interest me because when a fellow retires and sits down and don't do nothing, he doesn't stay in. And you have something to get up for. If you don't have anything to get up for, some mornings you stay there, and the first thing you know, you don't get up.
And one thing that keeps us fit, we don't have a television.
I'm Finney Allison from DeFuniak Springs, and I hope you like the show. Good night.
Loans, liniment, for, let's see here. One piece garments combining. That's interesting. You, Chris.
DeFuniak Springs can credit its very existence to the coming of the railroad.
This is neat.
It's a big one.
All right, Trish.
Welcome to Postcards.
This is it.
This is what I call going the extra mile to get
We're
your
always
story.
on the road. Oh, I want to kill her.